What happens when a woman who controls everything meets a man she can't control? Sophia Reed built empires. She commanded boardrooms. She never came second to anyone until she met a single father on a beach who made her question everything she thought she knew about power, love, and what it means to truly matter in someone's life. This is the story of a CEO who had to learn that being chosen isn't about being first. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it moves you, hit that like button. Now let's begin. The Mercedes sedan pulled into the gravel parking lot with the kind of precision that suggested its driver approached everything in life the same way: calculated, controlled, inevitable. Sophia Reed stepped out into the coastal afternoon, her designer sunglasses reflecting the crystalline blue of the ocean ahead. The sea breeze immediately attacked her carefully styled hair, and she felt the familiar spike of irritation that came with anything she couldn't manage. Even on vacation, control was her comfort zone. She had exactly 7 days away from Reed Industries, the multinational consulting firm she'd built from a single office and a mountain of student debt into a powerhouse worth $500 million. 7 days her executive team had practically forced on her after she'd worked 18 months without a break. 7 days she'd reluctantly agreed to after her assistant Marcus had made the reasonable point that dead CEOs weren't particularly effective leaders. The coastal town of Crescent Bay wasn't her first choice. Sophia preferred structured luxury: 5-star resorts with award-winning spas, Michelin-starred restaurants, places where every detail was managed by professionals who understood that her time was worth more per hour than most people made in a week. But her therapist, yes, even Sophia Reed had finally conceded to therapy, had suggested somewhere unprogrammed, somewhere without agendas or itineraries, somewhere, Dr. Chen had said with infuriating calm, where she might actually rest. So here she was, in a town with more seagulls than restaurants, checking into a boutique hotel that probably considered Wi-Fi a luxury amenity. The rental house Marcus had found overlooked the beach, charming, according to the listing, which Sophia had learned was real estate code for small and probably outdated. She was already calculating how much work she could reasonably do in the evenings. The beach itself was quieter than she'd expected for a Thursday in late June. A handful of families dotted the sand, children shrieking as they chased waves that retreated just before tiny feet could catch them. An elderly couple walked hand in hand near the waterline, their pace unhurried in a way that made Sophia's chest tighten with something she couldn't quite name. She found a spot away from the clusters of people, spread out the oversized towel she'd purchased specifically for this trip, still creased from the packaging, and sat down with the rigid posture of someone unaccustomed to relaxation. Her phone was already in her hand before she consciously decided to check it. 43 emails since she'd left the city 2 hours ago. She was 3 messages deep into a response about the Singapore merger when movement in her peripheral vision made her glance up. About 20 yards down the beach, a man sat on a faded blue towel that had clearly seen better days. He wore simple swim trunks and a gray t-shirt, his attention focused entirely on a small boy who was engineering an elaborate sandcastle with the intense concentration only children could muster. The boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, had dark curls that the wind kept blowing into his eyes. He pushed them away impatiently, his small hands packing sand with architectural precision that seemed far too serious for someone his size. "No, no, no," the boy muttered, loud enough for Sophia to hear. "That wall's gonna fall." The man, his father, she assumed, leaned forward slightly. "What if you wet the sand more? Might hold better." The boy considered this with the gravity of an engineer reviewing structural plans. "Good idea, Dad." He scrambled up and ran toward the water with a small bucket, his legs churning sand. The man watched every step, his body language suggesting that if the child so much as stumbled, he'd be there before the boy hit the ground. Sophia found herself watching them instead of her phone. The father wasn't conventionally handsome, not in the polished, gym-sculpted way of the men in her usual circles. He had the kind of face that suggested reliability rather than excitement. Strong jaw, steady eyes, the slight weathering of someone who spent time outdoors rather than in climate-controlled offices. His hair was dark brown, cut practically short. His hands, she noticed, had the calluses of someone who worked with them. The boy returned with the bucket of water that was mostly empty by the time he made it back, having sloshed half of it across the sand in his excitement. "This enough?" he asked breathlessly. Might need another trip, buddy. Okay. The child was off again without hesitation. The man smiled, a small, private expression that transformed his entire face. It was the kind of smile that suggested he could watch this scene 1,000 times and never tire of it. Sophia realized she'd been staring for at least 3 minutes. Her email sat unfinished. The merger that had consumed her last 6 weeks suddenly seemed very far away. She told herself she was simply people-watching, the way anyone might on a beach. But something about the quiet intensity of the father's attention, the way he seemed completely present in this moment, rather than thinking about the next thing, the next meeting, the next deal, it created a strange pull in her chest. When was the last time she'd been that present anywhere? The boy made 4 more water trips, each one splashing away more than half the precious cargo. His father never suggested a better method or corrected his inefficiency. He simply watched, offered quiet encouragement, and helped pack sand when asked. Sophia caught herself creating a mental efficiency report. A larger bucket would reduce trips by 75%. Teaching him to walk slower would minimize water loss. The entire sandcastle operation could be completed in half the time with better planning. She actually laughed out loud at herself. Even here, on a beach, on vacation, she was optimizing someone else's sandcastle construction. The sound caught the man's attention. He glanced over, and their eyes met for a brief moment. Sophia looked away quickly, suddenly feeling caught in something, though she couldn't have said what. She forced herself back to her phone, to her emails, to the comfortable territory of problems she knew how to solve. But her focus had fractured. She kept looking up, watching the construction project progress with its inefficient, joyful methodology. An hour passed. The sun shifted, lengthening shadows across the sand. The boy's castle had grown into an impressive structure despite, or perhaps because of, its complete lack of conventional architectural logic. Walls leaned at precarious angles. Towers rose to different heights without pattern. A moat had been dug with more enthusiasm than engineering sense, causing one whole section to partially collapse. The boy didn't seem discouraged. He simply rebuilt, his small hands never stopping. Sophia's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Chen Wei, her CFO. She almost answered. It was instinct, really, but something made her decline it. She could call him back later, tomorrow, even. I'm on vacation, she reminded herself, testing how the thought felt. Foreign, slightly uncomfortable, like wearing someone else's clothes. The boy suddenly stood up, brushing sand from his knees. I gotta pee, Dad. All right, buddy, want me to come with you? Dad, I'm 7. I can go to the bathroom by myself. The child's indignation was profound. The man held up his hands in surrender. Fair enough. Straight to the bathroom and straight back, yeah? Don't talk to anyone. I know. The boy rolled his eyes with the world weariness of someone who'd heard this speech 1,000 times. Stranger danger. And you're the best dad ever? The boy grinned, clearly deploying charm he knew worked. And I love you? And I'll wash my hands, the boy finished with a dramatic sigh. That's my guy. The child took off toward the public restrooms near the parking lot, kicking up sand behind him. The man watched until the boy disappeared into the building, then kept watching the door, his entire body oriented toward that single point. Sophia recognized the posture. She'd seen it in negotiations when someone was waiting for news that would make or break a deal. That absolute, unwavering focus. Except this wasn't a business deal. This was just a father waiting for his son to return from the bathroom. Just. The word sat strangely in her mind. She stood up, brushing sand from her legs, and found herself walking toward him before she'd consciously decided to move. Her body seemed to have bypassed her brain entirely, which almost never happened. When she was about 10 feet away, she stopped, suddenly unsure of herself. Another rare feeling. What was she even doing? She didn't approach strange men on beaches. She didn't make small talk with people she didn't need to know for professional reasons. But he had noticed her movement and looked up, his expression open and curious without being invasive. Hi, Sophia said, then immediately felt stupid. Hi? That was the best she could do? She negotiated multi-million-dollar deals in 3 languages, and the best opening line she could produce was hi? Hey, he replied, smiling slightly. Not the practiced smile of someone networking or trying to impress. Just friendly. I couldn't help noticing she gestured toward the sandcastle, That's some serious construction happening there. He glanced at the structure with obvious pride. Yeah, Leo takes his architecture very seriously. I think we're going for aggressively whimsical as a design aesthetic. Sophia laughed, surprised by the genuine amusement she felt. Is that the technical term? It is now. He shaded his eyes to look up at her. You're welcome to come closer. I don't bite. Can't speak for the sandcastle. It has a mind of its own. She moved forward and sat down on the sand near his towel, maintaining a respectful distance. Up close, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, smile lines, the kind that came from years of genuine happiness rather than social obligation. I'm Sophia, she offered. Daniel. He extended his hand, and she shook it. His grip was firm without being aggressive, warm without being clammy. His hand was definitely that of someone who worked with them. She could feel the calluses across his palm. So, enjoying the view? The question came out more playful than she'd intended, and she felt a flutter of something in her stomach. Was she flirting? She didn't flirt. She had relationships that began with mutually agreed upon terms and ended when they no longer served both parties' interests. Daniel's expression didn't change, didn't register the subtle suggestion in her tone, didn't perk up with interest or attraction. He simply looked out at the ocean, then back at the sandcastle, then at the bathroom door where his son had disappeared. Every part of it, he said simply, and she could tell he meant it. The response deflated her in a way she hadn't expected. Not because she wanted him to flirt back, she hadn't realized she wanted anything, but because his complete sincerity was so foreign to her world of subtext and strategy. He wasn't playing a game, he wasn't positioning himself, he was just answering her question. How long are you here for? He asked, making comfortable small talk. A week. You? We live here. Well, about 10 minutes up the coast. We come to this beach most days during summer break. Summer break, right, school. Sophia searched her memory for the last time she'd had a conversation about school schedules. College, maybe? That seemed like several lifetimes ago. Leo's just finished second grade. Honestly, can't believe how fast it's going. Feels like yesterday I was teaching him to walk, and now he's reading chapter books and explaining to me why my music taste is vintage. Daniel's smile was affectionate. Apparently anything from before he was born is vintage now. What do you do? Sophia asked, then immediately regretted how it sounded, like she was qualifying him, assessing his value. I mean, for work, when you're not on sandcastle duty. Project manager for a construction company. We mostly do commercial buildings, offices, retail spaces, that kind of thing. Lots of coordinating contractors, managing timelines, putting out fires. He said it matter-of-factly, without false modesty or inflated importance. What about you? I run a consulting firm. We help companies restructure, optimize operations, that sort of thing. She deliberately kept it vague. The moment people heard CEO or knew the size of Reed Industries, their entire demeanor changed. They either became obsequious and eager to impress, or defensive and resentful. Either way, the real conversation ended. Sounds intense, Daniel observed. It can be, but I enjoy it most of the time. The admission surprised her. When was the last time she'd actually thought about whether she enjoyed her work? It simply was her work, her identity, her purpose. That's good. Life's too short to spend it doing things you don't enjoy. He said it like a simple truth rather than some profound philosophy. The bathroom door opened and Leo emerged, running full speed back toward them. Daniel's attention immediately shifted, his entire focus narrowing to that small figure navigating between beach blankets and other families. Dad! Dad! There was a crab in the sink, Leo announced breathlessly as he skidded to a stop. Like a real crab. Not a big one, but still. Did you wash your hands with the crab watching? Yeah, he was very judgy about it. I think he thought I wasn't using enough soap. Leo's eyes were wide with the joy of this discovery. Daniel grinned. Did you tell him you're 7 and you know how to wash your hands properly? I did, but he just did this. Leo mimed a crab claw opening and closing, which I'm pretty sure means more soap, kid. Well, you can't argue with a crab's hygiene standards. They're very particular. It was such an easy exchange, so full of shared humor and understanding. Sophia felt like an anthropologist observing a foreign culture, trying to understand the rules of engagement. Leo suddenly noticed her, his chatter stopping mid-sentence. He moved closer to his father, not frightened exactly, but cautious. "Leo, this is Sophia. She's visiting for the week," Daniel said easily. "Sophia, this is my son, Leo, the master architect you've been watching." "Hi, Leo. That's a very impressive castle," Sophia said, trying to find the right tone for talking to children. She'd given presentations to rooms full of hostile executives, but small talk with a 7-year-old felt infinitely more challenging. "Thanks." Leo studied her with the unfiltered assessment only children could manage. "Are you here by yourself?" "Leo." Daniel's tone was gently corrective. "What? I'm just asking." "It's okay," Sophia said quickly. "Yes, I'm here by myself, just taking a break from work." Leo processed this information solemnly. "That's sad. Vacations are better with people." The observation, delivered with such guileless honesty, hit harder than Sophia expected. She'd taken exactly 3 vacations in the last 5 years, all of them alone, all of them structured around wellness retreats or professional development conferences. The idea that this might be sad had never occurred to her. "Maybe," she said carefully. "I guess I'm used to it." "We could share if you want," Leo offered, with the generosity of someone who hadn't yet learned that kindness was supposed to be strategic. "We're going to get ice cream later. They have really good ice cream at Rosie's. Right, Dad?" "The best," Daniel confirmed, but he was looking at Sophia now with something new in his expression. Not pity, she would have hated pity, but a kind of gentle understanding. "That's very nice of you, Leo, but I'm sure you and your dad have plans," Sophia started. "We don't really plan," Leo interrupted with perfect 7-year-old confidence. "We just do stuff. Yeah, Dad says the best things happen when you don't plan too much." Sophia glanced at Daniel, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "In the context of sandcastle building and ice cream selection, I stand by that philosophy. In the context of actual adult life, I do considerably more planning." "But not about everything," Leo insisted. "Dad says some things you just gotta feel." "Have to feel what?" Daniel corrected automatically. "That's what I said." Sophia found herself smiling, really smiling, not the professional smile she deployed at networking events. These two had a rhythm, a way of being together that was both structured and loose, predictable and spontaneous. "I should let you get back to your castle building," Sophia said, standing up and brushing sand from her legs. "It was nice meeting you both." "You too," Daniel said. "Enjoy your vacation." "Thanks." She started to walk away, then heard Leo's voice. "Are you going to come back tomorrow?" She turned back. "To the beach?" "Yeah, we'll be here. We're always here when it's not raining. Well, sometimes we come even when it's raining because Dad says getting wet never killed anybody, but usually we come when it's sunny." "Leo, she might want to do other things," Daniel started, but Sophia surprised herself. "Maybe I will come back. The view is pretty good here." Leo beamed. Daniel's expression remained neutral, friendly, completely unaffected by any potential double meaning. "Cool," Leo said, then immediately returned his attention to his castle, the adult conversation already forgotten in favor of the pressing matter of whether the East Tower needed reinforcement. Sophia walked back to her towel, picked up her phone, and realized she hadn't looked at it once during the entire conversation. Her email inbox showed 62 unread messages now. She opened the text thread with Marcus. Sophia. "Made it safely. Hotel is fine. Beach is quiet." His response came immediately. Marcus. "Fine and quiet are words I've never heard you use positively before. Should I be worried?" Sophia. "I'm on vacation. I'm supposed to use different words." Marcus. "Are you actually relaxing or are you sitting on a beach answering emails?" Sophia looked at her screen, at the flood of messages waiting for her attention. Sophia. "I'm working on it." Marcus. "That's what I was afraid of. Turn off the phone, boss. The company will survive without you for a week. Probably." Sophia. "Very reassuring." Marcus. "It's what I'm here for. Now seriously, put the phone down. That's an order from your assistant, which I'm pretty sure violates several organizational hierarchies, but I'm doing it anyway." She smiled and, in a moment of uncharacteristic impulse, turned on Do Not Disturb mode. The silence was immediate and unsettling. Sophia lay back on her towel and stared up at the sky, trying to remember the last time she'd done absolutely nothing. The clouds drifted past in shapes that meant nothing, going nowhere in particular, unhurried by deadlines or quarterly projections. Down the beach, she could hear Leo's running commentary on his architectural decisions, Daniel's occasional questions and affirmations, the sound of two people completely absorbed in the present moment. She closed her eyes and tried to absorb it too. The warmth of the sun, the sound of the waves, the smell of salt and sunscreen. All the things people talked about when they talked about beaches, about vacation, about relaxation. It felt foreign and uncomfortable, and strangely like something she might, possibly, eventually want to understand. When she opened her eyes again, the sun had moved considerably. She'd actually dozed off, something she never did, never could do. Her mind was always too active, too full of problems to solve and strategies to develop. Down the beach, Daniel and Leo were packing up their things. The sandcastle stood proud and crooked, already under siege from the incoming tide. Leo was taking photos of it with what looked like a child-proof camera, documenting his creation from multiple angles. Daniel glanced over and caught her watching. He raised a hand in a casual wave. She waved back, feeling oddly disappointed that they were leaving. "It's just boredom," she told herself. "Novel surroundings, different people. Doesn't mean anything." But as she watched them walk toward the parking lot, Leo chattering animatedly, Daniel carrying all their gear and responding to his son's monologue with the patience of someone who found even the 100th retelling interesting, she felt something shift in her chest. Not attraction exactly. More like curiosity, recognition. The same thing she felt when she spotted a problem worth solving, a challenge worth her time. Except Daniel Harper wasn't a problem. And he definitely wasn't a challenge she could approach with her usual strategic methodology. He was just a man who loved his son and built sandcastles and existed with an ease in the world that Sophia had never, in her entire achievement-oriented life, managed to feel. She wanted to understand that, wanted to know what it felt like to be that present, that unguarded, that simply content. Or maybe, and this possibility made her breath catch, maybe she wanted to know what it felt like to be around someone who made space for that kind of presence, who didn't need her to be the powerful CEO, the strategic genius, the woman who had all the answers, someone who looked at her and just saw her, whatever her meant when she wasn't defining herself by accomplishments and acquisition. Sophia picked up her phone and, for the first time in years, didn't open her email. Instead, she just sat with the question, letting it exist without immediately trying to solve it. The sun was setting now, painting the sky in colors that didn't show up in conference rooms or corner offices. The sandcastle stood alone on the darkening beach, its architect long gone, its purpose served simply by existing, by being created, by the joy it had brought in the making. Tomorrow, the tide would take it. And the day after that, Leo would probably build another one, just as crooked, just as imperfect, just as full of serious 7-year-old intention. And Daniel would watch with that quiet, steady attention that suggested he'd never grow tired of witnessing his son build and rebuild and build again. Sophia wanted to see that, wanted to watch it happen, to understand what it meant to invest so completely in something so temporary, so imperfect, so beautifully pointless by any measure of productivity or return on investment. She stood up, gathered her things, and walked back to her car. But she knew, with the certainty she usually reserved for business decisions, that she'd be back tomorrow. Not for the beach, not for the vacation, for the view. Every part of it. Sophia woke at 5:30 the next morning, her body conditioned by years of pre-dawn conference calls with international offices. For exactly 4 seconds, she reached for her phone before remembering where she was and what Marcus had ordered her to do. The silence in the beach house felt oppressive. No email notifications, no calendar alerts, no text messages from her executive team flagging overnight crises that required her immediate attention. She made coffee in the unfamiliar kitchen, opened her laptop out of habit, then closed it again. The morning stretched ahead with no structure, no agenda, no purpose beyond the terrifying directive to relax. By 8 o'clock, she'd reorganized the kitchen cabinets, responded to 3 emergency emails that absolutely could have waited, done 45 minutes of yoga, and was climbing the walls with restless energy. By 9:30, she was back at the beach. Daniel and Leo weren't there yet. Sophia spread her towel in the same spot as yesterday and tried not to watch the parking lot like someone waiting for a business partner who was running late for a critical meeting. This is pathetic, she thought. You don't even know these people. But she stayed anyway, pretending to read a book she'd downloaded months ago and never opened, glancing up every time she heard a car door close. They arrived at 10:15. Leo came running down the beach access path with a different bucket, this one shaped like a castle turret, while Daniel followed at a more measured pace, carrying the same faded towel, a small cooler, and a backpack that looked like it had survived several military campaigns. Leo spotted her immediately. "Sophia, you came back!" The pure delight in his voice made something in her chest constrict. When was the last time anyone had been that genuinely happy to see her? Her team was happy when she solved problems. Her clients were happy when she made them money. But this uncomplicated joy at her mere presence was entirely foreign. "I did," she said, smiling. "The view was too good to miss." Daniel reached them, slightly out of breath. "Morning." "Leo, give her some space, buddy." "I'm not in her space." "Am I in your space?" Leo looked up at her with those serious, dark eyes. "You're fine," Sophia assured him. "Actually, you're excellent company." Leo beamed and immediately began unpacking his sandcastle equipment with the focus of a surgeon preparing for an operation. Daniel set down the cooler and gave Sophia a friendly nod. "Didn't expect to see you back so soon. Thought you might explore the town, check out the local attractions." There was no judgment in his voice, just casual conversation. "I did explore. Last night I walked 3 whole blocks to a restaurant that specialized in something called coastal fusion cuisine, which I think means they put seafood in things that don't traditionally contain seafood." Daniel laughed. "Let me guess. Catch 42? "That's the one." "Yeah, they're adventurous." "How was the lobster risotto with passion fruit reduction?" "Exactly as confusing as it sounds." Sophia found herself smiling. "I ordered a burger." "Smart call. If you want actual good food, Rosa's does a fish and chips that'll change your life. No fusion, no reduction, just properly fried fish and enough malt vinegar to pickle your internal organs." "Sounds romantic." "It's transcendent." He said it with such conviction that she laughed. Leo had already started digging, his entire body committed to the project. Daniel settled onto his towel, assumed his watchful position, and pulled out a paperback with a cracked spine. Some thriller with an improbable title about submarines and international conspiracies. Sophia tried to return to her own book, but found herself watching them instead. The way Daniel's attention never fully left his son, even when he appeared absorbed in reading. The way Leo would periodically look back to make sure his father was still there, still watching, still present. "Can I ask you something?" The words came out before she'd fully processed them. Daniel looked up from his book. "Sure." "Does he always check that you're watching?" Daniel followed her gaze to Leo, who was at that exact moment glancing back at them. Understanding crossed his features, softening something in his expression. "Yeah, he does." Daniel was quiet for a moment, and Sophia wondered if she'd overstepped. Then he continued, "His mom left when he was 3. Just decided one day that motherhood wasn't what she wanted, that we weren't what she wanted. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. It's okay. It was 4 years ago. We've both done a lot of healing since then." He said it matter-of-factly, without bitterness. But Leo still worries sometimes that people leave, so he checks. Makes sure I'm still here. The casual devastation of that explanation hit Sophia hard. She thought about her own childhood, her own mother who'd been present but perpetually disappointed, always pushing for more achievements, better grades, higher performance. That had damaged her in ways she was still unpacking in therapy. But to be abandoned entirely? "That must have been incredibly difficult," she said quietly. "It was. It is. But we manage. We're a team, you know, him and me against the world." Daniel smiled, but there was steel underneath it. "He's the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't trade him for anything." Does his mother see him at all?" "No, she signed away her parental rights, moved to Portland last I heard. Started a whole new life." The words were even, controlled. "I used to be angry about it, furious actually, but I realized that anger was just hurting me and, by extension, hurting Leo, so I let it go. She made her choice. I made mine. And your choice was him. Every time. Without question." The certainty in Daniel's voice was absolute. "Look, I know single parenthood isn't what anyone plans for. It's exhausting and complicated, and sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing. But he's my son. There's no universe where I don't choose him. Sophia absorbed this, trying to map it onto her own understanding of choice and sacrifice. In her world, choices were strategic calculations, cost-benefit analyses of what you gained versus what you gave up, the language of compromise and trade-offs. Daniel spoke about his choice like there was no calculation involved, like it was as fundamental as breathing. "You must date, though," she said, then immediately regretted how it sounded. Prying, invasive. But Daniel didn't seem offended. "Not really. I tried a few times in the first couple years after the divorce, set up profiles on apps, went on some dates." He shrugged. "It didn't work. Why not?" He considered the question carefully, his gaze still on Leo. "Because Leo comes first. That's not negotiable. And most people don't really get that. They say they do. Oh, I totally understand you're a single dad. That's so admirable. But then they get frustrated when I cancel because Leo's sick, or when I can't do spontaneous weekend trips because I have a 7-year-old, or when they realize that any relationship with me is actually a relationship with us." The emphasis on the last word was subtle but unmistakable. "So you just don't date?" "I didn't say that. I said it doesn't work. There's a difference." Daniel finally looked at her directly. "I'm not opposed to the idea of having someone in my life, but they'd need to understand that Leo and I are a package deal, that his needs and his schedule and his emotional well-being come before romantic dinners and weekend getaways, that there will be school plays and soccer games and homework meltdowns, and those things matter more than spontaneity or romance." Sophia felt something tighten in her chest, the directness of it, the absolute clarity of his priorities. In her experience, people rarely stated their non-negotiables so plainly. They hid behind polite deflections, vague statements about seeing where things go, the careful dance of managing expectations without committing to hard boundaries. Daniel just laid it out. "This is who I am. This is what I need. Take it or leave it." "That sounds lonely," she said softly. "Sometimes it is," he admitted. "But loneliness is better than being with someone who resents my son, or who sees him as an obstacle to overcome rather than a whole person who deserves to be prioritized." "Dad!" Leo's voice cut through their conversation. "Can you help me with the moat? It keeps filling with sand." "Sure, buddy." Daniel stood up, brushed sand from his legs, then glanced back at Sophia. "You're welcome to join us if you want. Fair warning, sandcastle construction is a full-contact sport in this family." She should decline. Should maintain appropriate boundaries with these strangers who were somehow becoming less strange by the minute. Should return to her book, her emails, her carefully controlled vacation itinerary of structured relaxation. Instead, she heard herself say, "I'd love to." Leo's face lit up like she'd just offered him $1 million. "Really? Okay, so here's the plan. We need the moat to be deeper in the middle so the water doesn't escape. But Dad says if we dig too deep, it'll undermine the walls, which I think is maybe true, but also maybe we just need to reinforce the walls better. So what do you think?" He delivered this entire strategic briefing without pausing for breath, his small hands gesturing to illustrate complex engineering principles. "I think," Sophia said carefully, slipping into problem-solving mode, "that we need to consider structural integrity versus aesthetic goals. What's the primary purpose of the moat?" Leo stared at her like she'd just asked the most profound question in human history. "To keep the castle safe from invaders." "Okay, so defense is the priority." "Yes." "Then depth matters less than consistency. A moat that's consistently 4 inches deep around the entire perimeter is more defensively sound than one that's 8 inches in some places and filled with sand in others." Daniel made a sound that might have been a laugh disguised as a cough. Leo considered this with utmost seriousness. "That makes sense. Okay, so we need to dig it all the same depth. Can you help measure?" For the next 40 minutes, Sophia found herself on her hands and knees in the sand, using Leo's small shovel to excavate a moat, while Daniel reinforced walls and Leo supervised with the intensity of a Fortune 500 CEO overseeing a critical project. No, no, that part's too shallow. It needs to match the other side. Leo, maybe ask a little more politely, Daniel suggested mildly. Please, can you make that part match the other side? Leo amended, then immediately returned to his quality control inspection. Sophia couldn't remember the last time she'd taken direction from anyone, let alone a 7-year-old with sand in his hair and an unshakable vision of moat specifications. It should have been irritating, should have triggered her need for control. Instead, she found it oddly freeing. She wasn't the CEO here, wasn't the expert, was just a person helping build something that would be destroyed by the tide in a few hours, creating something temporary and imperfect and utterly without monetary value. There, Leo finally declared, it's perfect. The moat was decidedly not perfect. It varied in depth by at least 2 inches in various sections. One whole side had partially collapsed, but Leo looked at it with such pride that Sophia found herself seeing it through his eyes, not as a flawed execution, but as an achievement worth celebrating. It really is good, Daniel said, and he meant it. Team effort. Couldn't have done it without the crew. We're a crew now? Sophia asked, brushing sand from her knees. Well, you did perform moat excavation duties. I think that qualifies you for provisional crew membership. Daniel's eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, pending Leo's approval, of course. You can be in the crew, Leo said magnanimously, but you have to come back tomorrow because we're going to build a whole village with, multiple castles. A whole village? Sophia repeated. Yeah, Dad said we could make it a weekend project. We'll build different parts each day, and then on Sunday we'll take a picture of everything before the tide gets it. Leo was already sketching plans in the sand with his finger, completely absorbed in this new grand vision. Daniel caught her eye and shrugged apologetically. You absolutely don't have to. He gets enthusiastic and forgets that other people have their own plans. The easy out, the polite escape hatch he was offering her. Sophia thought about her calendar, completely empty except for relax, penciled in by Marcus with multiple exclamation points. Thought about the rental house that felt too quiet. Thought about the last 3 hours, during which she hadn't checked her phone once and hadn't missed it. I think I could make time for village construction, she said. Leo's whoop of joy startled a nearby seagull into flight. They worked until early afternoon when Leo started getting cranky in the way that suggested low blood sugar. Daniel produced sandwiches from his cooler, peanut butter and jelly cut into triangles, which Leo informed her was the only correct shape for sandwiches. Rectangles are for toast, triangles are for sandwiches. That's just science, he explained with absolute authority. I can't argue with science, Sophia agreed solemnly. Daniel offered her half of his own sandwich, turkey and cheese, also cut into triangles, and she accepted it, surprised by how hungry she was. Physical labor, apparently, worked up an appetite in ways that back-to-back meetings never did. They ate in comfortable silence, watching the ocean. Leo finished first and immediately returned to adding finishing touches to the castle, narrating his architectural decisions to himself in a steady stream of consciousness. He's got an amazing imagination, Sophia observed. He does. Sometimes I wonder where he gets it. I'm pretty practical, and his mother— Daniel trailed off, then continued carefully. She was creative, I guess, but she also had trouble distinguishing between imagination and reality sometimes. I worry about that. He seems pretty grounded to me. Imaginative, yes, but he knows it's a sandcastle. He knows it's temporary. Yeah. Daniel looked relieved. Yeah, you're right. I probably worry too much. You're his father. Isn't that your job? According to every parenting book ever written, yes. He smiled wryly. Though they all seem to contradict each other about what exactly I'm supposed to worry about. What does your instinct tell you? The question seemed to surprise him. He was quiet for a long moment, watching Leo with that steady attention that never wavered. That he's going to be okay, Daniel said finally. That we're going to be okay. That love and consistency and showing up every day matter more than doing everything perfectly. Sophia felt something crack open in her chest. She'd spent her entire adult life pursuing perfection. Perfect grades, perfect performance reviews, perfect quarterly results. The idea that showing up imperfectly but consistently could be enough seemed almost revolutionary. That's a good instinct, she said quietly. What about you? Daniel asked. What do your instincts tell you? About what? about whatever you're running from. The observation was gentle but direct, and it landed with unexpected accuracy. Sophia's first impulse was to deflect, to deny, to retreat behind the professional facade she'd spent years perfecting. But something about this man, his quiet steadiness, his refusal to be impressed by the things that usually impressed people, made her want to be honest. "I'm not running from anything," she said slowly. "I'm just trying to figure out if there's something I've been running toward that might not actually be worth reaching." Daniel nodded, like this made perfect sense. "And have you figured it out yet?" "No, but I'm starting to think maybe the figuring out is the point." "That sounds exhausting." "It really is." They sat with that for a while. Leo had moved on to collecting shells, examining each one with scientific precision before deciding whether it met his standards for inclusion in the castle village. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said eventually. "Sure." "Why did you really come back today?" The question should have felt invasive, should have triggered her defenses. Instead, it felt like an invitation to honesty she hadn't realized she was waiting for. "Because yesterday I watched you watch him," she gestured toward Leo, "and I realized I've never looked at anything the way you look at your son, with that kind of attention, that kind of presence." She struggled for the right words. "I've looked at quarterly projections and market analyses and strategic plans, but I've never just looked at something and been completely there for it." "And you want to learn how?" "I want to understand what that feels like, even if I can't have it." Daniel turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Why can't you have it?" "Because I built a life that doesn't leave room for it. Because I've spent 15 years optimizing every minute for maximum productivity. Because I run a company that employs 800 people and depends on me making the right decisions." The words came faster now, frustration bleeding through. "Because I'm not built for sandcastles and spontaneity and just being." "That's bullshit." The bluntness shocked her. Daniel rarely cursed, she'd noticed. He modified his language around Leo, and that carefulness seemed to extend to most of his speech. "Excuse me? You're not built any particular way. You've made choices. You can make different choices." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "You're sitting here right now, aren't you? On a beach, building sandcastles with a 7-year-old you met yesterday. That's a choice. For a week, then I go back to my real life." "Why?" "Because that's where my company is, my team, my responsibilities. And those things can't exist if you also have a life outside of them. It's not that simple, isn't it?" Sophia felt heat rise in her face, anger, defensiveness, something else she couldn't quite name. "You don't understand. The level I operate at, the decisions I make, they require total commitment. I can't half-ass running a $500 million company." "I'm not suggesting you half-ass anything. I'm suggesting that maybe total commitment to work means partial commitment to yourself." Daniel's voice remained calm, which somehow made it more irritating. "And that seems like a shitty trade-off. Easy for you to say. Your job has boundaries. You go to work, you come home, you have evenings and weekends with your son. My work doesn't have boundaries. Markets don't sleep. Crises don't respect office hours. So set boundaries anyway. It's not that—" "Dad!" Leo came running over, clutching something in his cupped hands. "Look what I found." The tension broke immediately. Daniel's full attention shifted to his son. "What have you got there, buddy?" Leo carefully opened his hands to reveal a small hermit crab, its shell a swirl of browns and whites. "Can we keep him?" "What do we say about ocean creatures?" Leo sighed dramatically. "They live in the ocean, not in our house, and taking them home is bad for them and illegal and also mean." "But," Daniel prompted, "but we can observe him respectfully and then put him back where we found him?" The words came out like a well-rehearsed script. Exactly right. They spent the next 10 minutes examining the hermit crab, Leo providing detailed narration about its anatomy and probable lifestyle. Daniel asked questions that gently guided his son toward scientific observation, encouraging curiosity while teaching respect for living things. Sophia watched them, her earlier frustration draining away. She'd been defensive because Daniel had touched something true, something she didn't want to examine too closely. When the crab had been carefully returned to its original location, Leo whispering a solemn goodbye, Daniel looked at her with an expression that might have been apology. I shouldn't have pushed. Your life, your choices. No, you're right. Mostly. Sophia surprised herself with the admission. I have made choices. And some of them, maybe they made sense at the time, but don't anymore. So make different ones. Just like that? Just like that. He said it with the infuriating confidence of someone who'd already done the hard work of rebuilding his life from scratch. The afternoon was fading. Families began packing up their beach gear, herding sunburned children toward parking lots. Leo's energy was flagging, his movement slower, his usual chatter replaced by comfortable silence. We should probably head out, Daniel said, checking his watch. Someone has a dinner to eat and a bath to take before bed. I don't need a bath, Leo protested automatically, but without much conviction. You have sand in places sand should not be, buddy. Bath is non-negotiable. Fine. Leo turned to Sophia. You're coming back tomorrow, right? For village construction? She should hedge, should say maybe, should protect herself from committing to people she'd only known for 2 days. I'll be here, she said instead. Leo grinned and threw his arms around her waist in an impulsive hug that shocked them both. He pulled back quickly, suddenly shy. Sorry, I forgot about personal space. It's okay. Sophia's voice came out rougher than intended. I liked it. After they left, she stayed on the beach longer than she meant to, watching the tide creep closer to the sandcastle they'd built together. The moat filled gradually, the walls began to soften, the towers started their slow collapse. Tomorrow it would be gone, and they'd build something new, something imperfect and temporary and entirely without strategic value. She couldn't wait. The village construction project lasted 3 days. By Sunday afternoon, a sprawling sandcastle metropolis stretched across their claimed section of beach, 5 main structures of varying heights and architectural ambition, connected by a network of roads that Leo insisted were highways for very small cars. Sophia had contributed 2 towers and significant portions of the defensive wall system. Her hands were raw from digging, her knees scraped from kneeling in wet sand, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this satisfied by anything she'd built. It's perfect, Leo declared, circling the village with his camera. This is definitely going in my portfolio. You have a portfolio? Sophia asked. Well, no, but Dad says if I'm going to be a professional architect someday, I should start documenting my work now. Right, Dad? Daniel was stretched out on his towel, one arm over his eyes against the sun. I said you could take pictures if you wanted. You're the one who decided that constituted professional documentation. Same thing. Leo was untroubled by this distinction. Sophia, can you stand next to the big castle? I want to show scale. She positioned herself as directed, feeling ridiculous and inexplicably happy. The camera clicked several times. Perfect. Now, Dad, you too. I'm comfortable where I am, buddy. Dad. Leo's voice took on that particular tone children everywhere mastered, the one that suggested parental cooperation was not optional. Daniel sighed dramatically, but hauled himself up and joined Sophia beside the castle. Leo directed them like a seasoned photographer, adjusting their positions, requesting more natural expressions, asking them to look like you actually like each other. We do like each other, Sophia said, then felt oddly vulnerable admitting it out loud. Then show it. Leo made exasperated gestures. Smile, look happy. Daniel caught Sophia's eye and grinned. Without thinking, she found herself leaning slightly toward him, their shoulders almost touching. The camera clicked rapidly. Okay. Now, one with all of us. Leo set the camera's timer and sprinted into position between them, throwing his arms around both their waists. 3, 2, 1. The shutter caught them mid-laugh, Leo's hair wild in the wind, all 3 of them sandy and sunburned and genuinely happy. Later, after Leo had taken approximately 60 more photos from various angles, they packed up their gear. The routine had become familiar, Daniel gathering towels and empty water bottles, Leo carefully collecting any trash, Sophia folding her chair and gathering the sand toys they'd accumulated. You hungry? Daniel asked as they reached the parking lot. We're probably going to grab pizza. You're welcome to join us. It was the first time he'd extended an invitation beyond the beach. Sophia hesitated, suddenly aware of the line they'd been walking, the careful boundary between beach acquaintances and something more substantial. Please? Leo added. You have to come. We need to celebrate the village properly. I don't want to intrude on your evening. You're not intruding if we're inviting you, Daniel said simply. But no pressure. I know you're on vacation. You probably have other plans. She didn't. Her entire week had reorganized itself around beach mornings and sandcastle construction. The emails she'd been so anxious about had somehow handled themselves. The crises she'd imagined would implode without her constant attention had resolved through her team's competence. Pizza sounds great, she heard herself say. Tony's Pizza was exactly the kind of place Sophia would normally never enter. Red vinyl booths with duct-taped repairs, fluorescent lighting that highlighted every surface flaw, a jukebox in the corner playing hits from 3 decades ago. The smell of garlic and oregano hit her the moment they walked in. The usual Harper family? Called a woman from behind the counter, early 60s, gray hair pulled back in a practical bun, smile lines carved deep around her eyes. You know it, Rosa, Daniel called back. And who's this? Rosa's sharp gaze fixed on Sophia with unconcealed curiosity. This is our friend Sophia, Leo announced. She's been helping us build sandcastles all week. She's really good at moats. High praise from the master architect. Rosa came around the counter to shake Sophia's hand with a grip that suggested she'd been making pizza dough for most of her adult life. Any friend of these two is welcome here. You want the usual too, or you need a menu? Sophia glanced at Daniel, who shrugged. The usual is pepperoni and mushroom, thin crust, extra sauce, but we can get something else if you want. The usual sounds perfect. They slid into a booth, Leo immediately claiming the spot next to Sophia, Daniel across from them. Within minutes, Rosa delivered drinks without being asked. Root beer for Leo, iced tea for Daniel, and after a moment's consideration, iced tea for Sophia as well. So, Rosa said, lingering by their table with no apparent intention of leaving, how long you visiting for, Sophia? Just the week. I leave tomorrow. Shame. These two could use more good influences in their lives. Rosa winked at Daniel. No offense, honey, but Leo needs some feminine energy around here. All those sandcastles are making him too serious. I'm not too serious, Leo protested. I'm appropriately serious for my age and responsibilities. 7-year-olds don't have responsibilities, baby. They have recess and snack time. I have lots of responsibilities. I have to feed Captain, that's our fish, and I have to keep my room clean, mostly, and I have to practice my reading every night. Rosa laughed and ruffled his hair before heading back to the kitchen. Leo immediately tried to smooth down the disrupted curls, looking mortified. She's known us since Leo was 3, Daniel explained. Considers herself his honorary grandmother. She's nice, Sophia said. She's pushy, Leo corrected, but in a good way. Dad says some people are pushy because they're controlling, and some people are pushy because they care. Rosa's the caring kind. The observation was so mature, so carefully learned, that Sophia wondered how many conversations Daniel had navigated to help his son understand the difference. That's a good distinction, she said. Dad teaches me lots of distinctions, like how being alone is different from being lonely, and how being sad is different from being depressed, and how missing someone is different from needing them to come back. Leo swung his legs under the table, completely unaware of the weight of what he was saying. That last one's about my mom. I miss her sometimes, but I don't need her to come back because I have Dad, and that's enough. Daniel's expression flickered, pride and pain mixing in equal measure. Leo, maybe... It's okay, Dad. Sophia knows about Mom leaving. You told her, remember? I know, buddy. I just don't want you to feel like you have to explain. I don't have to. I want to. Leo turned to Sophia with those serious dark eyes. It's important for people to know that families can look different. That's what my counselor says. Some families have a mom and dad. Some have 2 moms or 2 dads. Some have just one parent. Some have grandparents or aunts and uncles. What matters is that people love you and take care of you. The recitation had the quality of something practiced, worked through in therapy sessions and bedtime conversations. Sophia felt her throat tighten. Your counselor is right, she managed, and you're very lucky to have a dad who loves you so much. I know. Leo said it without arrogance, just simple truth. He's the best. Daniel looked like he might cry. Instead, he cleared his throat roughly. Okay, enough making your old man emotional. Who wants to play the jukebox game? Me! Leo's hand shot up. What's the jukebox game? Sophia asked. Dad gives me quarters and I pick 3 songs, and then we have to guess what mood I'm in based on my choices. Leo was already sliding out of the booth. It's like musical psychology. Daniel handed over 3 quarters, and Leo bounded toward the jukebox with single-minded purpose. The moment he was out of earshot, Daniel's expression shifted to something more vulnerable. Sorry about that. He's been working through a lot in therapy, and sometimes he just downloads all of it without filter. Don't apologize. He's incredible. You're both incredible. We're a work in progress. Daniel traced patterns in the condensation on his glass. Some days are harder than others. He had a rough patch about 6 months ago. Nightmares, separation anxiety, the whole thing. His therapist said it's normal for kids who've experienced abandonment to have waves of it as they process what happened. How is he now? Better. Most days are good, great even. But I'm always watching for signs, making sure he feels secure, making sure he knows I'm not going anywhere. That's why you never take your eyes off him at the beach. That's part of it. The other part is just, he's my kid. I like watching him. I like seeing him figure things out, seeing his brain work. Daniel smiled softly. People think parenting is about teaching your kids stuff, and it is, but it's also about learning from them. Leo's taught me more about resilience and forgiveness and being present than any adult ever has. Music suddenly blared from the jukebox, some upbeat rock song from the 80s. Leo came dancing back to the table, chair dancing in his seat when he arrived. Okay, first song analysis, Daniel said seriously. High energy, classic rock, enthusiastic air guitar. I'm going to say, happy with hints of celebration? Correct, Leo pumped his fist. Because we finished The Village and it's pizza night, and Sophia's here. The casual inclusion of her in his list of things worth celebrating made Sophia's chest ache. The pizza arrived, massive, dripping with cheese and sauce, imperfect and perfect. They ate with the unselfconscious hunger of people who'd spent the day in physical labor. Leo provided running commentary on optimal pizza eating techniques, including the correct cheese-to-crust ratio and why corner pieces were scientifically superior. Between songs 2 and 3, which Daniel correctly identified as contemplative with optimistic undertones, Leo started yawning despite his best efforts to hide them. Someone's running out of steam, Daniel observed. I'm not tired, Leo insisted through another yawn. Course not. But maybe we should get you home anyway. They packed up the remaining pizza in a to-go box. Rosa waved away Sophia's attempt to pay, saying, first time's on the house for Leo's friends, which suggested she'd be expected to return. The thought should have been absurd. She was leaving tomorrow, returning to her real life, her company, her carefully constructed world. But the idea of coming back to Tony's Pizza, of sitting in these duct-taped booths and eating imperfect pizza with Daniel and Leo, felt more appealing than it had any right to. Outside, the parking lot was dark except for a single streetlight. Leo had crashed hard, leaning heavily against his father's side. I should let you get him home, Sophia said. Yeah. Daniel shifted to better support Leo's weight. Hey, listen, tomorrow's your last day. If you want to do something other than sandcastles, we'd understand. I'm sure there's other stuff you want to see. Actually, I was wondering if maybe we could do something different tomorrow. The words came out in a rush. I mean, together, if you want. There's a lighthouse up the coast I read about, and I thought maybe Leo would like it. Daniel looked surprised, then pleased. He'd love that. We've been meaning to visit, but keep putting it off. So, pick you up at 10. I have a rental car just sitting in the garage. You don't have to drive. I want to. Please. Let me contribute something other than moat excavation skills. He smiled, and in the dim parking lot light, Sophia saw something shift in his expression, something that looked almost like hope. Okay, yeah, that sounds great. He pulled out his phone. Let me give you my address. They exchanged numbers, and Sophia tried to ignore how significant that felt. Just contact information, just logistics, except it didn't feel like just anything. Leo stirred enough to mumble, Bye, Sophia. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Leo. She watched them walk to Daniel's truck, a practical Ford that had clearly transported many sandcastle supplies and muddy soccer cleats. He buckled Leo into a booster seat with practiced efficiency, the movements automatic from years of repetition. Before climbing into the driver's seat, he looked back at her and waved. She waved back, standing in the parking lot until his taillights disappeared around the corner. The drive back to the rental house felt longer than usual. The silence pressed in, no longer comfortable but hollow. She'd gotten used to Leo's constant narration, Daniel's quiet presence. Inside, she opened her laptop and finally looked at her email properly. 247 unread messages, 3 flagged as urgent by Marcus. She opened the first one. Marcus: "Boss, the Henderson merger is making noises about backing out. They want reassurances about the Singapore expansion timeline. Need your input." The second. Marcus: "Never mind on Henderson. Chen handled it. Turns out we don't actually need you for everything. Who knew?" The third. Marcus: "Seriously though, stop reading these. You're on vacation. I can see you've been opening emails. Stop it." Sophia smiled despite herself and closed the laptop. Her phone buzzed with the text from an unknown number. Unknown: "This is Daniel. Got home safe. Leo's already asleep on the couch. Thanks for today. All of it." She saved his contact and typed a response. Sophia: "Thank you for including me. I had a really good time." Daniel: "You sound surprised." Sophia: "I am. I'm not usually a good time person." Daniel: "You're selling yourself short. Leo hasn't stopped talking about you all week. Says you're actually cool for an adult." Sophia: "High praise from a 7-year-old." Daniel: "The highest. See you tomorrow?" Sophia: "Definitely." She set the phone down and noticed her reflection in the dark window. Hair tangled from wind and salt water, face sunburned across the nose, smile that looked unfamiliar on her own features. She looked happy. The realization was startling enough that she stood there for several minutes just staring at herself, trying to remember the last time she'd seen that expression looking back. The lighthouse trip the next morning should have been simple. Pick them up, drive 40 minutes up the coast, tour the lighthouse, drive back. A clean, structured activity with a defined beginning and end. What Sophia hadn't accounted for was how Leo's presence transformed every mundane moment into an opportunity for wonder. "Did you know lighthouses used to use whale oil for the lamps?" he announced from the back seat, approximately 3 minutes into the drive. But then they switched to kerosene because whale oil was expensive, and also probably whales didn't love being made into lamp fuel. "Can't imagine they did," Sophia agreed, navigating the coastal highway with one eye on the GPS. "And the light can be seen from like 20 miles away on a clear night." 20 miles? That's like from our house to the other side of the bay and back again. Daniel turned around in the passenger seat. "Buddy, maybe let Sophia concentrate on driving. I'm not distracting her, I'm educating her. There's a difference." "It's fine," Sophia said, charmed despite herself. "I like learning about lighthouses." "See, Dad? She likes learning." The lighthouse stood on a rocky promontory, white and red striped, exactly like something from a postcard. The visitor center was small but well-maintained, with exhibits about maritime history and the lighthouse keepers who'd lived here through the decades. Leo was entranced. He read every placard, examined every artifact, asked the volunteer docent so many questions that the elderly man eventually just started following them around to provide ongoing commentary. "Your son is very bright," the docent told Daniel. "Thank you. We think so." There was no false modesty in Daniel's voice, just pure pride. "And you too." The docent looked between Daniel and Sophia with a knowing smile. "You're raising him well. Good to see young families interested in history." Neither of them corrected his assumption that they were together, that they were a family. The moment passed, and they continued through the exhibit, and Sophia tried not to think about how natural it had felt to let that misunderstanding stand. The tower climb was narrow and steep, 108 steps spiraling upward. Leo counted every one out loud, his voice echoing in the confined space. At the top, they emerged onto the observation deck. The view stole Sophia's breath. Ocean stretched endlessly in every direction, the coastline curving away in both directions, boats like toys on the blue-green water. "Wow," Leo whispered, for once without additional commentary. They stood there for a long time, The three of them side by side at the railing. The wind whipped around them, carrying salt and the cry of seabirds. Daniel's hand rested on Leo's shoulder, keeping him anchored and safe. Sophia felt like an intruder on something private and precious. But when she started to step away, Daniel's other hand caught hers, a brief, warm squeeze that said, "Stay." So she stayed. On the drive back, Leo fell asleep within minutes, exhausted by excitement and stair climbing. The car filled with the soft sound of his breathing. "Thank you for this," Daniel said quietly. "He's going to remember this day forever. The lighthouse, the trip, all of it." "I'm glad. I'll remember it too." "Will you?" There was something careful in his voice. "After you go back to your real life?" The question hung in the air between them. Sophia kept her eyes on the road, her hands steady on the wheel. "This feels like real life too," she said finally. "More real than most of what I do in boardrooms." "But you're still leaving tomorrow." "My flight's at 3. "Right." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Can I ask you something that might be completely inappropriate?" Her heart started beating faster. "Okay. What happens after this week? Do we just go back to being strangers? Exchange Christmas cards with generic updates? Or do we pretend this never happened?" "I don't know." The honesty felt vulnerable. "I've never done this before." "Done what?" "Connected with someone. With people. Without an agenda or timeline or strategic purpose." She risked a glance at him. "I'm not good at this." "You're doing fine." His voice was gentle. "But, Sophia, I need you to understand something. I can't do casual, not with Leo involved. He's already attached to you. If you're going to disappear tomorrow and never come back, I need to start preparing him for that tonight." The statement was matter-of-fact, but devastating in its implications. She thought about Leo's easy affection, his unself-conscious hugs, the way he'd included her in his list of things that made him happy. She thought about how Daniel had warned her from the beginning, Leo comes first. That's not negotiable. "I don't want to hurt him," she said quietly. "Then don't. It's not that simple. I live 8 hours away. I run a company that needs me. I can't just..." "Can't or won't?" The question landed hard. Sophia's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What do you want from me, Daniel? To quit my job? Upend my entire life? Move to a small coastal town and build sandcastles forever?" "I want you to be honest about what you actually want instead of hiding behind what you think you should want. That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's true." He rubbed his face tiredly. "Look, I'm not asking you to make any huge decisions right now. I'm just asking you to be honest with yourself. And with us. If this week was just a vacation fling, a break from reality, that's fine. We're adults. We'll handle it. But don't pretend it's something else when it's not." They drove in tense silence for several miles. Sophia's mind raced, trying to formulate a response that was both honest and safe, that protected everyone involved while acknowledging what was actually happening. "I don't know what this is," she said finally. "I know I've been happier this week than I've been in years. I know I look forward to seeing you and Leo more than I look forward to anything in my regular life. I know that when I think about leaving tomorrow, I feel like I'm making a terrible mistake. But I also know I'm terrified, because I've never let anyone matter this much. I've never put myself in a position where I could be second to someone else's priority. And with you and Leo, I'll always be second. You said so yourself." "That's not what I said." "You said Leo comes first. I said he comes first, not that everyone else comes second." Daniel turned in his seat to face her more fully. "Sophia, in healthy relationships, people don't rank each other. They make room for each other. There's enough space in my life for Leo to be my priority and for someone else to matter too. They're not competing interests, except when they are, when Leo needs you and I need you at the same time. Then I choose Leo, every time, without hesitation." His voice was firm. "But that doesn't mean you don't matter. It means I'm responsible for a child who depends on me completely. Anyone who can't understand that isn't someone I want in our lives anyway." The logic was sound. The boundary was clear. And Sophia realized her fear had nothing to do with being second and everything to do with being vulnerable to needs she couldn't control or predict. In her world, she set the agenda. She determined the priorities. She decided when meetings happened and how much time people got. With Daniel and Leo, she'd have to surrender that control. would have to accept that plans would change, that her needs might not be met immediately, that loving them meant accommodating the beautiful chaos of a 7-year-old's existence. The question was whether she was brave enough to try. They pulled into Daniel's driveway, a modest 2-story house with a basketball hoop over the garage and a garden that looked enthusiastically tended but not professionally landscaped. Leo's bicycle, training wheels recently removed based on the scrape marks on the concrete, leaned against the porch. This was their real life, the life she'd been visiting but not inhabiting. Daniel unbuckled his seatbelt but didn't immediately move to wake Leo. "I'm sorry if I pushed too hard. You don't owe me anything. You don't owe us anything." "I know. But if you want us, then you need to figure out what that looks like. Because I can't do halfway. Not with him at stake." Sophia looked at Leo, sleeping peacefully in the back seat, his mouth slightly open, one hand curled around his seatbelt. She thought about the shell he'd given her 3 days ago, the one she'd tucked carefully into her suitcase. "This one's safe," he'd said. "No sharp parts." He'd given her something precious and simple, expecting nothing in return except that she'd value it. When was the last time someone had offered her something without wanting something back? "I want this," she whispered. "I want you, both of you. I'm just scared I'll ruin it." Daniel reached over and took her hand. His palm was warm, his grip steady. "Then we'll figure it out together, if you want to." "I want to." The words felt like jumping off a cliff, like signing a contract she hadn't fully read, like the most reckless and necessary thing she'd ever said. Daniel smiled, that slow, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Okay then. Okay. So what now?" "I don't know. I've never done this before." "Me neither. Not really." He glanced back at Leo. "But we could start with you not getting on that plane tomorrow. I can't just not show up for work on Tuesday." "Can't or won't." She laughed, startled and exasperated. "You're going to use that question a lot, aren't you?" "Until you figure out the difference." He squeezed her hand. "Stay a few more days, call your assistant, tell him you need to extend your vacation." "Marcus will know something's wrong. I never extend vacations." "Maybe that's exactly why you should." Sophia looked at the house, at the sleeping child, at the man holding her hand like an anchor keeping her from drifting away. She thought about her empty condo in the city, about boardrooms and quarterly projections, about the life she'd built that suddenly seemed less like an achievement and more like a very sophisticated cage. "If I stay," she said slowly, "we do this right. No rushing. No promises we can't keep. We figure out what this looks like when it's not a vacation fantasy." "Agreed. And if it doesn't work, if I can't do this, or if it's too hard, then we'll handle it like adults. We'll be honest. We'll protect Leo. We'll do the hard thing instead of the easy thing." Daniel's voice was certain. "But Sophia, you have to at least try. You can't plan for every contingency." "Watch me." He laughed. "Fair enough. Try anyway?" She took a deep breath, feeling like she was standing at the edge of the observation deck again, looking out at something vast and unpredictable and beautiful. "Okay, I'll stay." The call to Marcus happened at 6 the next morning, before Sophia could talk herself out of it. "Please tell me someone died," Marcus answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Because that's the only acceptable reason for calling me at this hour when you're supposed to be relaxing on a beach somewhere." "No one died. I need to extend my vacation." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry, what? Did you just say you want to stay longer on vacation? You, Sophia Reed, woman who once came to work with the flu because mild respiratory distress is not a valid excuse for missing the quarterly review?" "Yes." "Are you being held hostage? Blink twice if you need me to call the police." "Marcus?" "No, seriously. Who are you and what have you done with my boss?" He was laughing now, fully awake. "Wait, oh my God. Is there a man?" "There's a man, isn't there?" Sophia's silence was apparently answer enough. "There is. There's a man. Who is he? What does he do? Is he age appropriate? Does he have all his teeth?" "I'm not discussing this with you." "You absolutely are. You called me at 6 in the morning to extend your vacation for the first time in recorded history. You owe me details." "He's a project manager. He has a 7-year-old son. And yes, he has all his teeth." A kid?" Marcus's tone shifted to something more serious. Boss, that's complicated. I know. Do you, though? Because you once told me that relationships were inefficient resource allocation, and you didn't have time for emotional labor that didn't produce measurable ROI. I was wrong. Another beat of silence. Okay, now I'm actually worried. Are you having some kind of crisis? Should I call Dr. Chen? I'm fine, better than fine. I just need a few more days to figure some things out. She could hear Marcus moving around his apartment, probably making coffee. How many days are we talking? A week, maybe 2. 2 weeks. Sophia, the Henderson merger. Chen handled it. You told me so yourself. Well, yeah, but... And the Singapore expansion? On track, but you're supposed to present to the board next Thursday. Sophia closed her eyes, feeling the familiar pull of obligation and responsibility. The part of her that had built an empire on never missing deadlines, never disappointing stakeholders, never being anything less than indispensable. Then she thought about Leo's sleepy smile when Daniel had carried him inside last night, about the way Daniel had looked at her when she'd said she'd stay, about the feeling of standing at the top of that lighthouse with both of them, like she was part of something that mattered more than quarterly projections. Reschedule it. Tell them I had a family emergency. Do you have family? I've worked for you for 6 years and I've never heard you mention anyone except a mother you haven't spoken to since Christmas 3 years ago. Marcus, please, I'm asking you to trust me. His sigh was long and dramatic. Fine, but you're buying me something extremely expensive when you get back. And you're telling me everything. I want details. I want timelines. I want to know what kind of project manager has magical powers strong enough to make Sophia Reed extend a vacation. Deal. And boss? I'm proud of you. This is good. You being a human person with human feelings and human needs, it's about damn time. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. Thanks, Marcus. After she hung up, Sophia sat in the quiet rental house and processed what she'd just done. 2 weeks. She'd bought herself 2 weeks to figure out if this fragile, terrifying thing with Daniel and Leo could survive contact with reality. Her phone buzzed with a text. Daniel. Leo wants to know if you're coming to his soccer game this afternoon. No pressure. I told him you might have other plans. Sophia. What time? Daniel. 2 p.m. It's at the elementary school field. Again, no pressure. 7-year-old soccer is mostly chaos with occasional accidental goals. Sophia. I'll be there. Daniel. He's going to lose his mind. Fair warning. The elementary school field was exactly what Sophia expected. Slightly uneven grass, portable goals that had seen better days, a handful of bleachers where parents clustered in team-colored shirts. She felt conspicuous arriving alone, overdressed in clothes designed for beachside restaurants, rather than youth sporting events. Daniel spotted her immediately and waved her over. He was sitting in the second row of bleachers, a cooler beside him, wearing a faded t-shirt that said Leo's #1 fan in letters that had clearly been applied with a home iron-on kit. You came! Leo's voice rang out from the field. He was in a bright green jersey that was slightly too big, cleats that looked brand new, shin guards that kept sliding down his skinny legs. Dad, Sophia came! I see her, buddy. Focus on warm-ups. Right, warm-ups. Very important. Leo attempted what looked like a stretch he'd seen professional athletes do, nearly toppling over in the process. Sophia climbed the bleachers and sat beside Daniel. How long has he been playing? This is his first season. He wanted to try it after watching the World Cup last summer. He's enthusiastic, but not exactly coordinated yet. Daniel's smile was fond. Last week he scored a goal for the other team because he got turned around. Oh no. He was devastated for about 3 minutes, then decided it was good practice for being humble. I have no idea where he gets this stuff. They watched the team run through drills, or attempt to. Most of the kids seemed more interested in examining bugs in the grass or talking to each other than actually practicing. The coach, a patient woman in her 50s, was trying to organize them with limited success. So you extended your vacation, Daniel said casually, eyes still on the field. How did you... Leo told me you were coming to his game. You told me yesterday your flight was at 3. Basic deduction. He glanced at her. something hopeful in his expression. How long? 2 weeks? Maybe a little more if I can swing it. That's good. That gives us time. He reached over and squeezed her hand briefly. Thank you for trying. I haven't actually done anything yet except make a phone call. You showed up. That's something. The game started with a chaos that suggested organized sport was a generous description. 20 kids descended on the ball like a swarm, kicking at anything that moved, occasionally at each other's shins. Leo was in the thick of it, his face set in fierce concentration. Go, Leo, Daniel shouted. Stay with the ball. Leo looked back at his father, grinned, and promptly tripped over his own feet. Sophia winced, but Leo bounced right back up and threw himself back into the fray. No tears, no complaint, just pure determination. He's resilient, she observed. He's had to be. Daniel's voice was quiet. Kids who go through what he went through either break or become incredibly strong. Leo chose strong. Or maybe he didn't choose. Maybe it's just who he is. Either way, I'm grateful. They watched in companionable silence for a while. The game progressed in stops and starts, more defined by water breaks and minor injuries than any actual scoring. Leo chased the ball with tireless energy, occasionally getting close enough to kick it before being overtaken by larger, faster kids. A woman in the row ahead turned around. Is that your daughter? It took Sophia a moment to realize the question was directed at her. Oh no, we're not, she stammered. She's a friend, Daniel supplied smoothly, visiting for a bit. Well, it's nice of you to come support the team. These games can be brutal. The woman laughed. I'm Kelly, by the way. My son's the one picking dandelions in left field. Sophia, and he seems very focused on his task. Oh, he's focused all right, just not on soccer. Kelly rolled her eyes affectionately. How do you know the Harpers? The question felt loaded with curiosity. Sophia could sense other parents tuning in, interested in the stranger in their midst. We met at the beach, she said carefully. I'm on vacation. Lucky you. This town's a great place to visit. Terrible place to find single men over 30 who have all their teeth in a functioning moral compass, but great for vacation. Kelly winked at Daniel. No offense, Daniel. You're one of the good ones. None taken. I know I'm a catch. His tone was dry, self-deprecating. You really are. If I wasn't happily married to my disaster of a husband, I'd be all over that. Kelly turned back to Sophia. How long are you staying? A couple weeks, maybe. Oh, that's plenty of time. Kelly's smile turned knowing. This town has a way of getting under your skin. People come for vacation and end up staying for life. Before Sophia could formulate a response, a whistle blew on the field. Halftime. The kids scattered toward their respective sides, several heading straight for the coolers their parents had brought. Leo ran full speed toward them, his face flushed and sweaty. Did you see? I almost got the ball like 3 times. I saw, Daniel said, pulling water bottles from his cooler. You're doing great, buddy. I'm terrible, Leo corrected cheerfully. But I'm having fun, which Dad says is the point. The point is actually teamwork and exercise, but fun works too, Daniel amended. Can Sophia sit with us for the second half? She is sitting with us. No, I mean on the team bench. Coach said family could sit there if they wanted. Leo looked at Sophia with those huge, hopeful eyes. You're basically family, right? The question hung in the air. Sophia felt Daniel tense beside her, probably preparing to run damage control to explain that she wasn't actually family, that Leo shouldn't get attached. But the truth was, she didn't want him to explain. Didn't want to correct this sweet, generous child who'd decided she belonged with them. If your coach says it's okay, I'd love to, she heard herself say. Leo's whoop of joy attracted attention from half the field. He grabbed her hand and practically dragged her down to the team bench, chattering the entire way about strategy and how he was definitely going to score in the second half, even though he probably wouldn't, but it was good to have goals, right? Sophia sat on a slightly damp wooden bench between 2 other team parents, feeling completely out of place and strangely at home at the same time. Daniel had stayed in the bleachers, giving her space, but she could feel his gaze on her. The second half was marginally more organized than the first. Leo spent most of it running in circles, occasionally in the right direction. With 5 minutes left, the ball somehow ended up at his feet. He looked shocked, then terrified, then determined. "Go, Leo!" Sophia found herself shouting, on her feet without realizing she'd stood. "Go!" He ran toward the goal, his own goal, thankfully, weaving through opponents more by accident than design. A bigger kid tried to steal the ball. Leo, in a move of pure instinct, kicked it away from him, directly into his own team's goal. The whistle blew. The other team cheered. Leo's shoulders slumped. Sophia's heart broke for him. She started to stand to go to him, but Daniel was already there. He dropped to one knee on the field, pulling Leo into a hug that the child initially resisted. She was too far away to hear what Daniel said, but she watched Leo's body language shift, the dejection easing, the small nod, then, miraculously, a smile. When they walked off the field together, Leo's hand in his father's, the child's head was up again. Still disappointed, but not destroyed. Resilient, just like Daniel had said. "That's the second own goal this season," Kelly commented from beside her. "Daniel's really good with him about it. Never makes him feel bad, always finds the lesson. He's an incredible father. Best single dad I know, and I know a lot of them, hazard of being a family therapist." Kelly gave her an appraising look. "You care about them." It wasn't a question. Sophia nodded anyway. "Good. They deserve someone who cares." Kelly stood up, gathering her things. "Fair warning, though. This town talks. By tomorrow, everyone will know Daniel Harper brought a woman to Leo's game. By Thursday, they'll have you married with a second kid on the way. Small towns are efficient gossips. It's not, honey. I've been watching you watch them for the last hour." "Whatever it is, it's something." Kelly smiled kindly. "And that's okay. Just be prepared for the attention." After the game, they went back to Tony's Pizza. It was becoming a routine, Sophia realized. Beach, lighthouse, soccer game, pizza, the scaffolding of a life together. Leo was subdued, still processing his second own goal of the season. He picked at his pizza, uncharacteristically quiet. "You know what I did once?" Sophia said suddenly. "I gave a presentation to our biggest client with my shirt on inside out. Didn't notice until I was 15 minutes in, and someone finally had the courage to tell me." Leo looked up, slightly interested despite himself. "Did you get fired?" he asked. "No. I finished the presentation, walked out of the room, fixed my shirt, and walked back in. We got the contract." "What's the point of that story?" "The point is that everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after." "I scored a goal for the other team." Leo's voice was small. Again. "You did. And you know what else you did? You got back up. You kept playing. You didn't quit." Sophia leaned forward. "In my business, we call that resilience. It's worth more than getting things right the first time." "Really? Really? I'd rather hire someone who fails and tries again than someone who only does things they know they'll succeed at. The second person never learns anything new." But Leo considered this seriously. "So messing up is actually good?" "Messing up is information. It teaches you what doesn't work so you can figure out what does." She glanced at Daniel, who was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Your dad's been teaching you that, hasn't he?" "Yeah. He says there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. Your dad's a smart man." "He really is." Leo's smile was returning. "Okay, so next game I'll try to score in the right goal, but if I don't, that's just feedback for the game after that." Exactly. The child's resilience was remarkable. 5 minutes later, he was back to his normal, chatty self, explaining to Sophia the complex social dynamics of second-grade soccer and why Tommy Martinez was both his best friend and his rival, depending on the day. After dinner, Daniel walked her to her car in the parking lot. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that still took her breath away. "Thank you for that," he said quietly. "What you said to Leo about mistakes and resilience, he needed to hear it from someone other than me. I meant it. He's an amazing kid. He really is." Daniel leaned against her car, hands in his pockets. "So, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. What do you want to do with them?" The question felt significant, layered with meaning beyond the surface. What did she want? Not just activities or plans, but fundamentally, what was she hoping to find here? "I want to see what your real life looks like," she said slowly. Not vacation life. Real life, the boring parts, the hard parts, all of it. My real life involves a lot of driving Leo to various activities, packing lunches, and explaining why he can't have ice cream for breakfast. I want to see that. Why? Because I need to know if I can fit into it. If there's room for me in the life you've already built. Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful in the fading light. Sophia, you're asking the wrong question. What's the right question? Not whether you can fit into our life, whether we can build something new together, something that includes all three of us. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture achingly tender. I'm not looking for someone to slot into the gaps in our existing routine. I'm looking for someone to grow with, to change with. That's terrifying. Yeah, it is. He smiled slightly. But most worthwhile things are. She kissed him then, before she could overthink it, before fear could override courage. It was soft and tentative, a question more than a statement. He kissed her back with quiet certainty, his hand coming up to cup her face. When they pulled apart, they were both slightly breathless. That was, she started. Yeah, he agreed. I should go. You need to get Leo home. I do. But Sophia, come by tomorrow. For breakfast. Leo makes terrible pancakes on Tuesday mornings. It's tradition. Terrible pancakes sound perfect. She drove back to the rental house with her heart racing, her lips still tingling, her entire body alive with possibility and terror in equal measure. A text came through as she was parking. Daniel. That was nice. The kiss, I mean. In case that wasn't clear. Sophia. It was clear, and yes, it was nice. Daniel. Nice. That's the word you're going with? Sophia. I'm not good at this part. The feelings part. Daniel. You're doing fine. See you tomorrow? Sophia. 8 a.m.? Daniel. 9. Leo's not functional before 9 on school break. Neither am I, honestly. Sophia. 9 it is. The next morning, she showed up at their house at exactly 9 o'clock with fresh strawberries from the farmer's market and a nervousness she couldn't quite shake. Leo answered the door in pajamas covered with dinosaurs, his hair sticking up in every direction. Sophia! Dad! Sophia's here! I told you she'd come! I had faith, buddy. Daniel appeared behind his son, also in pajamas, plain gray, practical. He looked softer in the morning light, less guarded. Come in. Welcome to chaos. The house was lived in and comfortable, nothing like Sophia's minimalist condo with its professionally curated art and furniture chosen more for aesthetic than comfort. Here, there were drawings stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, shoes scattered by the door, a cat she hadn't known existed sleeping on the back of the couch. That's Captain, Leo explained. He's technically a fish, but Dad says I can call anything Captain if I want. So when we got a cat, I named him Captain too. It's less confusing than you'd think. What happened to the fish captain? He died. We had a funeral and everything, but then we got Cat Captain, so it's okay. The easy way Leo discussed death and loss and moving forward broke Sophia's heart and impressed her in equal measure. This child had learned to hold space for grief without being consumed by it. The pancake-making process was exactly as chaotic as promised. Leo insisted on doing most of the work himself, which resulted in eggshells in the batter, flour on every surface, and pancakes that were simultaneously burnt and undercooked. These are terrible, Leo announced proudly, serving a misshapen pancake onto Sophia's plate. The worst, she agreed solemnly. But we made them with love, so they taste better, he continued, a statement that was clearly learned from his father. Daniel caught her eye across the table and smiled. This was real life. This was Tuesday morning. This was what it would actually mean to be part of their world. And despite the chaos, despite the burnt pancakes and the flour in her hair, and the complete lack of control over any aspect of the morning, Sophia found herself thinking, I could do this. I could actually do this. After breakfast, Leo had a playdate with a friend from school. Daniel drove him over and Sophia stayed behind, ostensibly to help clean up, but really because she needed a moment to process. She was loading the dishwasher when she heard the front door open. He's going to be gone for 3 hours, Daniel said, coming into the kitchen. We have the house to ourselves. The implication hung in the air, Sophia's stomach flipped with nerves and anticipation. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I want to talk, really talk." He leaned against the counter. "About what this looks like going forward. About expectations and boundaries and all the practical stuff we've been avoiding." Oh, it was so perfectly Daniel. Direct, honest, focused on the hard conversations before anything else. "Okay, let's talk." They sat at the kitchen table, coffee growing cold between them, and had the conversation Sophia had been dreading and needing in equal measure. "If we do this," Daniel started, "I need to know you understand what you're signing up for. Leo's therapy appointments every other Thursday, school events I can't miss, soccer games and parent-teacher conferences and random stomach bugs that mean canceled plans. I know. Do you? Because it's easy to say you know when it's hypothetical. It's different when you've made plans and I have to cancel because Leo's sick or having a hard day. I handled yesterday okay, didn't I? The soccer game? You did. Better than okay, but that was one afternoon. I'm talking about building a life together, about you potentially being a consistent presence in Leo's world, which means I need to know you're committed, not to me, to him." The weight of that statement settled over her. He was asking her to commit to his child before committing to their relationship. It was backward from how these things usually worked, but it was also completely right. "I can't promise I'll be perfect," Sophia said slowly. "I can't promise I won't mess up or that I'll always know what to do. But I can promise I'll show up. I can promise I'll try. And I can promise that I won't walk away when things get hard. That's all I need. Showing up is 90% of this." They talked for 2 more hours, working through logistics and concerns with the same careful attention Sophia usually reserved for contract negotiations. It should have felt unromantic, reducing their relationship to schedules and boundaries and practical considerations. Instead, it felt like the most romantic thing anyone had ever done for her. Because Daniel was being honest about what he needed, trusting her enough to be vulnerable about his fears, treating her like a partner rather than a conquest. When they finally ran out of practical matters to discuss, Daniel stood and held out his hand. "Come here." She let him pull her close, his arms wrapping around her with steady warmth. They stood like that for a long time, just breathing together, no agenda except being present. "I'm scared," she whispered into his shoulder. "Me too. But you seem so certain about everything." "I'm certain about what I want. I'm terrified about whether I can actually have it." His arms tightened slightly. "But I'd rather be scared and trying than safe and alone." Later that week, Sophia met Daniel's friends, other parents from Leo's school, neighbors, the loose community that formed around raising kids in a small town. They were warm and welcoming and absolutely transparent about sizing her up. "So you're the mysterious vacation woman," said Tom, Daniel's best friend who worked construction with him. "Danny's been different since you showed up. Lighter." "I don't know about that." "I do. I've known him since high school. He's been in survival mode for 4 years, just getting through each day, focused on Leo, not thinking about his own happiness." "You changed that." "I think he was ready to change." "Maybe. But you gave him a reason to." Tom studied her seriously. "Don't hurt them, okay? They've been through enough." The protective concern was endearing even as it made her nervous. These people loved Daniel and Leo. They'd circle the wagons if she proved unworthy. "I'll do my best not to," she said quietly. "That's all anyone can ask." The days developed a rhythm. Mornings at the beach when weather permitted. Afternoons helping Leo with summer workbook pages he was supposed to be completing. Evenings cooking dinner together, the 3 of them navigating the kitchen in a dance that became more coordinated each day. Sophia learned that Leo liked his sandwiches cut in triangles but his quesadillas in rectangles. That he had nightmares sometimes and would appear at his father's bedroom door asking to sleep on the floor. That he was scared of thunderstorms but pretended not to be because he thought 7 was too old for fear. She learned that Daniel woke at 5:30 every morning out of habit, made coffee that could strip paint, and sang off-key in the shower when he was happy. That he had a scar on his left shoulder from a construction accident 3 years ago. That he still kept a photo of Leo's mother in a drawer because he thought Leo might want it someday, even though it hurt to look at. And slowly, carefully, she began to share herself too, talking about her childhood with a mother who measured love in achievements, about building her company from nothing, driven by a need to prove she mattered, about the loneliness of success when there was no one to share it with. "You matter," Leo said seriously when she tried to explain why she worked so much. "Not because of your company, just because you're you." The simple statement from a 7-year-old undid something in her chest. She excused herself to the bathroom and cried quietly, processing years of conditional love and performance-based worth. When she came back, Daniel didn't comment on her red eyes, just squeezed her hand and asked if she wanted ice cream. 2 weeks became 3, then 4. Marcus stopped asking when she was coming back and started asking if she was coming back at all. "Marcus, the board is getting antsy. They want to know your timeline." Sophia, "I'm working remotely. Everything's getting done." Marcus, "I know, but they want you here, in person, doing the CEO thing." Sophia, "Tell them I'm exploring a satellite office opportunity." Marcus, "Are you actually doing that, or are you just making excuses to stay with project manager Dad and his adorable child?" Sophia, "Can't it be both?" Marcus, "Boss." Sophia, "Real talk, what's your endgame here?" The question haunted her. What was her endgame? She'd been living day to day, avoiding the bigger questions about how this could possibly work long term. She lived 8 hours away. Her company was there. Her team, her board, her entire professional identity. But her heart was here, with a man who built things with his hands and loved his son with fierce devotion. With a child who gave her shells and terrible pancakes and unconditional acceptance. Something had to give. She just didn't know what. The reckoning came on a Thursday evening. Leo was at therapy, his standing appointment that Daniel never missed. Sophia sat in the waiting room scrolling through emails when her phone rang. Jennifer Hartwell, board chair. She stepped outside to take the call. "Sophia, we need to talk about your extended absence." Jennifer, "I've been managing everything remotely." "You've been adequate remotely. We need you exceptional and in person. The Singapore expansion requires face-to-face negotiations. The board expects you at next week's meeting. In person, not via video call." Sophia's stomach dropped. "I can't make next week." Can't or won't? The question Daniel had asked her weeks ago, now coming from a completely different context. "I have commitments here." What commitments could possibly supersede a board meeting? Jennifer's voice was sharp. "Sophia, you built this company. You made it what it is. We need you here, doing your job, not playing house on some beach somewhere." Playing house. The dismissive phrase landed like a slap. "I'll call you back," Sophia said tightly and hung up. She sat in her car, shaking with anger and fear and something else. Because Jennifer wasn't wrong. The company did need her. She had responsibilities, obligations, people depending on her leadership. But she also had Leo, who'd asked if she'd be there for his school play next month, who'd started calling her Sophia instead of Dad's friend, who'd drawn a picture of 3 stick figures and labeled them Dad, Leo, and Soph. She had Daniel, who'd looked at her last night and said, "I think I'm falling in love with you," with such quiet certainty that she'd almost believed she deserved it. How was she supposed to choose between them? When Daniel came out with Leo, she was still sitting there, frozen. "Sophia?" Daniel's voice was concerned. "You okay?" She looked at them, at Leo's trusting smile, at Daniel's steady presence, and felt something crack in her chest. "I need to talk to you," she said. "After Leo's in bed." His expression shifted, recognizing the seriousness. "Okay." The conversation that night was the hardest thing Sophia had ever done. They sat on Daniel's back porch, the sound of ocean waves distant but constant. Leo was asleep inside, blissfully unaware that his world might be about to shift again. "They want me back," Sophia said without preamble. "The board. They're insisting I come back to the city, resume normal operations. They're questioning my commitment." "And what do you want?" "I want both. I want my company, and I want this. I want to be CEO, and I want to be here with you and Leo. But I can't figure out how to do both." Daniel was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful, controlled. "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know what to do. I'm saying I might have to go back, at least temporarily, to handle things in person." She was crying now, hot tears streaming down her face. I'm saying I don't want to lose this, but I don't know how to keep it. Temporarily? For how long? I don't know. A few weeks? A month? And then what? You come back here, we do long distance? You eventually decide the commute is too hard and this ends? His voice cracked slightly. Sophia, I told you from the beginning, I can't do halfway. And I definitely can't put Leo through halfway. I know you said that, but I thought I could figure it out. I thought there'd be some solution that let me have everything. Life doesn't work that way. Not when there's a child involved. Daniel stood up, paced to the porch railing. You have to choose. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. You have to choose what matters more. That's not fair. You're asking me to give up everything I've built. I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm asking you to decide what you actually want. He turned to face her. Because here's the thing, Sophia. You've spent this whole month talking about how happy you are here, how different you feel, how much you've changed. But the second your old life calls, you're ready to go running back. That's not fair, isn't it? You're sitting here telling me you might have to leave, like it's something happening to you instead of a choice you're making. His voice was rising despite his obvious efforts to stay calm. You have options. You can promote someone else to CEO. You can sell the company. You can set up a satellite office here and split your time. But you're not even considering those options because the truth is, you're scared. Of course I'm scared. I'm terrified. She was standing now too, both of them facing off across the small porch. I'm scared of losing my company. I'm scared of losing you. I'm scared of making the wrong choice and regretting it for the rest of my life. Then make a choice and live with it. But don't string us along while you figure it out. Leo deserves better than that. Hell, I deserve better than that. The words hung in the night air between them, sharp and true and devastating. I love you, Sophia whispered. I love both of you. I know. I love you too. Daniel's voice broke. But love isn't enough. Not when you have one foot out the door. They stood there in the darkness, the space between them feeling vast and uncrossable. All the careful plans they'd made, all the hope they'd built, crumbling under the weight of reality. What do you want me to do? Sophia asked finally. I want you to go back to the city, handle your business, figure out what you actually want from your life. Daniel's voice was rough but steady. And if you decide you want this, want us, then come back. Come back ready to build something real. And if I can't figure out how to balance everything, then at least you'll know. And we'll all move forward with that knowledge. It wasn't the answer she wanted. She wanted him to beg her to stay, to tell her they'd figure it out together, to make this easier somehow. But Daniel had never made things easy. He'd only made them honest. Sophia left the next morning before Leo woke up. She couldn't face saying goodbye to him, couldn't handle seeing his confusion about why she was leaving when she'd promised to stay for his school play. Daniel walked her to her car, his expression carefully neutral. Tell him I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I'll tell him you had to go back to work, that you'll call him soon. Will I? That's up to you. She wanted to kiss him goodbye, to have one last moment of connection, but he stood with his arms crossed, protecting himself, and she couldn't blame him. So she got in her car and drove away from the life she'd started to build, toward the life she'd spent 15 years creating, and wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her entire life. The 8-hour drive back to the city felt like crossing into another dimension. With each mile, Sophia felt herself hardening back into the person she'd been before the beach, before Daniel, before Leo had shown her what it meant to matter without achieving. By the time she pulled into her building's underground parking garage, the transformation was nearly complete. Hair pulled back in a severe bun, tailored suit retrieved from her emergency bag, expression carefully neutral. She could do this. She'd built an empire on compartmentalization and strategic focus. 1 month didn't erase 15 years of discipline. Except when she stepped into her condo, minimalist, pristine, utterly silent, the loneliness hit her like a physical blow. No drawings on the refrigerator. No dinosaur pajamas scattered on the floor. No off-key singing from the shower. No 7-year-old asking if triangles were scientifically superior to rectangles. Just expensive furniture and the hollow echo of her footsteps. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. Marcus. Saw your car in the garage. Welcome back to Civilization. Board meeting is 9 a.m. tomorrow. Jennifer wants to see you at 8. Sophia. Of course she does. Marcus. How bad was it? The goodbye? Sophia. I don't want to talk about it. Marcus. That bad? I'm sorry, boss. She didn't respond, just set her phone down and stared at the city lights stretching out beyond her floor-to-ceiling windows. This view had cost her a fortune. She used to find it inspiring, a visual reminder of everything she'd conquered. Now it just looked cold. That night she couldn't sleep. She lay in her king-sized bed, bought for space, not companionship, and replayed every conversation with Daniel, every moment with Leo, trying to figure out where it had gone wrong. But she knew where. It had gone wrong the moment she'd assumed she could have everything without sacrifice, that she could control outcomes through careful planning and strategic thinking. Some things couldn't be controlled. Love was one of them. The board meeting was exactly as excruciating as she'd anticipated. Jennifer Hartwell opened with barely disguised hostility. Welcome back, Sophia. I trust your extended vacation gave you the perspective you needed? The emphasis on vacation made it clear what Jennifer thought of her absence. It did, actually. Sophia's voice was level, professional. I've had time to evaluate what Reed Industries needs going forward. And what's your assessment? Another board member, Richard Chen, leaned forward with genuine interest. Sophia looked around the table at these people she'd worked with for years. People who'd believed in her vision, invested in her leadership, people she'd built this company alongside, and realized with startling clarity that she didn't recognize herself in their ambition anymore. I think Reed Industries needs a CEO who can give it undivided attention, she said slowly. Someone whose entire focus is on growth and expansion. Someone who isn't questioning whether this is actually what they want from life. The silence around the table was absolute. Are you resigning? Jennifer's voice was sharp with disbelief. I'm saying I need to restructure my role. Transition to a board chair position, perhaps. Stay involved strategically, but step back from day-to-day operations. That's insane, Jennifer stood up. You are Reed Industries. Without you, without me, there's a highly capable executive team that's been running things successfully for the past month. Chen handled Henderson. Marcus has been managing operations. The Singapore expansion is on track. Sophia met each board member's gaze steadily. I'm not indispensable. I just thought I was. Richard cleared his throat. Sophia, this is a major decision. Perhaps you should take more time to consider. I've had nothing but time. Time to realize that I built this company because I was running from something. And now I'm ready to stop running. The meeting devolved into chaos after that. Arguments about succession planning, shareholder value, her fiduciary responsibility. Sophia sat through it all with surprising calm, watching her board panic about a future without her. She'd expected to feel regret, fear, the desperate need to take it all back. Instead, she felt lighter than she had in years. Marcus cornered her after the meeting, his expression torn between admiration and concern. Are you having a breakdown? Should I call Dr. Chen? Is this some kind of stress-induced psychotic episode? I'm fine, better than fine. You just essentially quit the company you spent 15 years building. I didn't quit. I'm restructuring my involvement. There's a difference. Sophia smiled at his confusion. Marcus, when was the last time you saw me smile in this office? He opened his mouth, closed it, thought hard. I genuinely can't remember. Exactly. I've been miserable for years and didn't even notice because I was too busy being successful. She squeezed his shoulder. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm finally waking up. To what? To the fact that I built a company but forgot to build a life. And I met someone who showed me the difference. Marcus studied her carefully. You're going back to them, aren't you? To project manager Dad and the kid. If they'll have me, I left badly, really badly. Then you'd better figure out how to fix it. He pulled her into a quick hug. And for the record, I think this is the sanest decision you've ever made. Restructuring her role took 3 weeks of intense negotiations. Promoting Chen to CEO, transitioning herself to board chair, setting up systems that would let her work remotely most of the time. The board fought her every step, but Sophia had spent 15 years learning how to win arguments. This time, she was arguing for her own happiness instead of quarterly profits. She sold her condo, too many memories of the person she'd been. Put most of her furniture in storage. packed up the essentials, and loaded them into her car. Marcus helped her carry the last box down to the parking garage. "You know you're completely insane, right?" he said, but he was smiling. "Probably. But I'm insane in the right direction this time." "What if he doesn't take you back? What if you burn that bridge too badly?" "Then I'll figure something else out, but at least I'll know I tried." She climbed into her car, now packed with her entire life. "Besides, I'm not going back for him. I'm going back for me." That's very zen, very self-actualized. Dr. Chen would be so proud. Dr. Chen is going to charge you double for emergency sessions when this all falls apart. Optimism, Marcus. Try it sometime. The 8-hour drive back to Crescent Bay felt different this time. Not like crossing into another dimension, but like coming home. She arrived just after sunset, exhausted and terrified and more certain than she'd ever been about anything. But she didn't go straight to Daniel's house. She couldn't just show up and expect forgiveness. She needed a plan. She checked into the same boutique hotel where she'd stayed on her first visit, a lifetime ago. Unpacked her single suitcase, stared at her phone for 20 minutes before finally typing out a message. "Sophia, I'm back. I know I don't have the right to ask, but could we talk? I understand if you don't want to." The response came faster than expected. "Daniel, when?" "Sophia, whenever works for you." "Daniel, tomorrow. Leo has school, but I can meet you at the beach at 10. "Sophia, thank you." She barely slept, rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd explain. But every speech she prepared sounded hollow, insufficient for the damage she'd done. By the time she arrived at the beach the next morning, she'd given up on preparation. She'd just have to trust that honesty would be enough. Daniel was already there, sitting on his faded blue towel in their usual spot. He looked thinner, tired, like the last 3 weeks had cost him something too. "Hi," she said, stopping a few feet away. "Hi." His voice was carefully neutral. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me. Leo's been asking about you. I needed to be able to tell him something definitive." Daniel looked at her directly. "So what is it, Sophia? Why are you back?" She sat down on the sand, not on his towel, but close enough to talk without shouting. "I quit, sort of. I promoted my CFO to CEO and transitioned myself to board chair. I can work remotely most of the time, only need to be in the city for quarterly board meetings." Daniel's expression didn't change. "Okay. I sold my condo, put most of my stuff in storage, because it turns out I don't actually need that much to be happy." "Okay. And I came back because I love you. I love Leo. I love the life we were building together." Her voice cracked. "I love who I am when I'm with you. And I'm sorry it took me 3 weeks to figure that out. I'm sorry I left the way I did. I'm sorry I hurt both of you." Daniel was quiet for a long time, staring out at the ocean. Sophia forced herself to wait, to let him process, to not fill the silence with more words. "You broke his heart," Daniel said finally. "He cried for 2 days. Asked me every night when you were coming back, why you'd left without saying goodbye." The words gutted her. "I know. I'm so sorry. I'm not finished." His voice was harder now. "You broke his heart, Sophia. This child who'd already been abandoned once, who'd learned to trust again. And you left him without explanation, without goodbye, because it was easier for you. You're right. You're absolutely right. It was cowardly. It was. And it made me question everything, whether you actually understood what you were signing up for. Whether you were capable of putting someone else first." He finally looked at her. "So I need to know, are you back because you missed us, or because you're running from something again?" The question was fair and devastating. "Both, maybe," Sophia admitted. "I missed you so much it physically hurt, but I also realized that I'd been running toward success my whole life because I didn't think I deserved love without earning it, and you and Leo taught me that maybe I do." "Maybe you do?" "That I do. That love isn't about achievement or performance. It's about showing up, being present, choosing people over and over again." She wiped tears from her face. "And I chose wrong 3 weeks ago. I chose fear over love. But I'm choosing differently now." Daniel's expression softened slightly. "What does that actually look like? Choosing us?" "It looks like me renting a place here, getting involved in the community, being at Leo's soccer games and school plays, splitting my time between here and the city, but making here my home base. She pulled out her phone, showed him a rental listing. I already put in an application for this house. 3 bedrooms, walking distance to the elementary school, close enough to the beach that we can still build sandcastles. 3 bedrooms? One for me, one for a home office, and one for Leo for nights when he might want to stay over. If that's okay. If we get to that point. She was talking faster now, nervous. I'm not assuming anything. I know I have to earn back your trust, both of your trust. I'm just showing you I'm serious, that I've thought this through. Have you thought about what happens when it gets hard? When the novelty wears off and it's just daily life? Breakfast chaos and homework battles and me being too tired for conversation because Leo had nightmares all night? Yes, and I want that. All of it. The boring parts, the hard parts, the parts where I don't know what I'm doing. Sophia moved closer, close enough to touch, but not touching yet. Daniel, I spent 15 years building a perfect life that made me miserable. I'd rather have an imperfect life that makes me happy. He studied her face, searching for something. This isn't just about me and Leo, is it? It's about you figuring out who you are when you're not CEO Sophia Reed. Yes, and I'm terrified of that. But I'm more terrified of being 60 years old and realizing I spent my whole life in boardrooms instead of building something real. Real is messy. I'm learning to be okay with messy. A small smile tugged at his lips. You reorganized my kitchen cabinets the second time you came over. They were alphabetized. It was chaotic. It was functional. It was offensive to anyone with organizational standards. They were both smiling now, the tension easing slightly. I missed you, Daniel said quietly. Even though I was furious with you, even though you hurt us, I still missed you. I missed you too, so much. Leo drew you a picture of the 3 of us at the beach. He made me promise to give it to you if you came back. Sophia's throat tightened. Can I see him? I know I don't deserve... He gets out of school at 3. You could come by then, if you want. I want, more than anything. They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves. Not touching, but close. The space between them felt less vast than it had 3 weeks ago. I can't promise this will be easy, Daniel said eventually. Blending our lives, figuring out what this looks like long term. I don't need easy, I just need real. Then we'll try. But Sophia, if you're going to be in Leo's life, you're all in, not halfway, not when it's convenient. All in. All in, she echoed. I promise. Standing outside the elementary school at 3 o'clock, Sophia felt like she might throw up from nerves. Parents clustered in groups, chatting while they waited. A few recognized her and waved. The soccer moms from Leo's team, Rosa from the pizza place. Small town life, where everyone knew your business before you did. The bell rang. Children poured out in a chaotic stream of backpacks and shouting. Sophia scanned the crowd, heart pounding. Then she saw him. Leo, walking slowly, head down, backpack dragging. So different from the energetic child she remembered. Daniel called out to him. Hey, buddy, got a surprise for you. Leo looked up, saw his father, started to smile. Then his gaze shifted to Sophia and his entire body went rigid. For a horrible moment, she thought he might cry, or run away, or tell her she couldn't just leave and come back like nothing happened. Instead, he dropped his backpack and ran straight at her. She barely had time to kneel before he crashed into her, his small arms wrapping around her neck with desperate force. You came back, he sobbed into her shoulder. You came back, you came back, you came back. I did. I'm so sorry I left, Leo. I'm so sorry. I thought you didn't like us anymore. I thought I did something wrong. No. She pulled back to look at him, cupping his tear-stained face. You didn't do anything wrong. I did. I got scared and I made a bad choice. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Promise? I promise. Cross my heart. He hugged her again, and over his shoulder, Sophia saw Daniel watching them with an expression that held pain and hope in equal measure. This was real. This messy, imperfect, beautiful thing they were building, and she was finally ready for it. The transition wasn't seamless. There were hard days when Sophia's instinct was to control and organize, when she had to remind herself that Leo's homework method didn't need optimizing. There were nights when she missed her old life, the clarity of problems that could be solved with spreadsheets and strategic planning. There were moments when she and Daniel disagreed about parenting approaches, about boundaries, about how to navigate their relationship while protecting Leo. But there were also mornings making terrible pancakes, afternoons at soccer games cheering for goals scored in the right direction, evenings cooking dinner together, the three of them navigating the kitchen in an increasingly familiar dance. 2 months after she came back, Daniel asked her to move in. Not into his house, he wanted them to start fresh, find a place that was theirs together. They found a small house 3 blocks from Leo's school, with a yard big enough for a garden and a porch where they could watch the sunset. Leo got his own room, decorated exactly how he wanted it. Sophia set up a home office that she actually enjoyed working in. Daniel converted the garage into a workshop where he could tinker with projects on weekends. It wasn't perfect. Leo still had hard days when he worried people would leave. Sophia still sometimes caught herself checking email at midnight. Daniel still carried the weight of being the primary parent, the one who ultimately made the hard calls. But they were building something real. 6 months in, Leo's school had a family art show. Each student created a project about what family meant to them. Leo's was a collage, photos from the beach, ticket stubs from the lighthouse trip, a drawing of 3 stick figures beside a sandcastle. In the center, carefully printed in his improving handwriting, "Family is people who stay." Underneath, in smaller letters, "Even when it's hard." Sophia stood in front of it with tears streaming down her face, while other parents politely pretended not to notice. "He worked on that for 3 weeks, Daniel said quietly, coming to stand beside her. "Wouldn't let me see it until it was finished. It's perfect. He wanted to make sure you knew, that you staying mattered." She reached for his hand, lacing their fingers together. "It matters to me too. All of this matters." That night, after Leo was asleep, they sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, listening to the distant sound of waves. "I have something for you," Daniel said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Sophia's heart jumped. "Daniel, it's not what you think. Well, it is, but also it isn't." He opened the box to reveal a smooth shell, polished and set on a simple silver chain. "Leo found this the day after you came back. Said it was a safe one. No sharp parts. He wanted me to give it to you." She took it with trembling hands. "It's beautiful. There's an inscription." She turned it over. In tiny script, "You stayed." The tears came then, unstoppable. Daniel pulled her close, let her cry into his shoulder the way Leo had cried into hers 6 months ago. "I love you," she whispered when she could speak again. "I love you so much it terrifies me." "Good. Love should be a little terrifying, means it matters." He kissed her forehead. "I love you too. And Leo loves you, and we're building this weird, imperfect, beautiful life together. No regrets?" "Hundreds. But none about this." He tipped her face up to meet his gaze. "You want to know something? That first day on the beach, when you asked if I was enjoying the view? And you said, every part of it? I was talking about you. Even then, you just didn't notice." She laughed through her tears. "I noticed. I just didn't know what to do with it. And now? Now I know. I show up. I stay. I choose this over and over again." "Yeah," he agreed softly. "You do." A year after Sophia first arrived in Crescent Bay on what was supposed to be a 1-week vacation, they threw a party. Nothing fancy, just pizza from Tony's, friends from the neighborhood, Leo's entire soccer team running wild in the backyard. Marcus drove down from the city with his partner, brought expensive wine that everyone drank from plastic cups. "I can't believe you actually did it," he said, watching Sophia referee a dispute between Leo and another 7-year-old about whether water balloons constituted fair play in backyard soccer. "You're like a real person now." "I was always a real person." "You know what I mean. A person who has grass stains on her jeans and knows the names of her neighbor's kids and makes small talk about weather. It's character development. It's a miracle." He clinked his plastic cup against hers. "You're happy, really happy. I don't think I've ever seen you like this." "I didn't know I could be like this." "Does it scare you, that you almost missed it?" Sophia watched Daniel lift Leo onto his shoulders, both of them laughing as they joined the chaotic soccer game. Every day. But I didn't miss it. That's what matters. Later, after the party wound down and the last guest left, the three of them collapsed on the living room floor, exhausted and covered in grass stains. Best party ever, Leo declared. Can we do it again next week? How about next month, Daniel suggested. Give Dad time to recover. Fine, but only if Sophia makes her special cookies. They're just chocolate chip cookies, Leo. They're special because you make them. He rolled over to look at her seriously. Everything's special when you're here. Sophia's heart clenched. This child who'd been abandoned, who'd learned to protect his heart, had chosen to love her anyway. Had chosen to trust that she'd stay. I'm not going anywhere, she said, pulling him close. You're stuck with me. Good. He yawned hugely. Can I sleep in the middle tonight? Daniel and Sophia exchanged glances. They'd been trying to maintain boundaries, keep Leo in his own bed, but sometimes rules needed flexibility. Yeah, buddy, Daniel said. You can sleep in the middle. They carried him to the master bedroom, tucked him between them. Within minutes, he was asleep, his small body completely relaxed, secure in the knowledge that the people he loved wouldn't disappear while he slept. Sophia lay in the darkness, listening to Leo's soft breathing, feeling Daniel's warmth on the other side of their small, perfect human. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Email notification from the board. She glanced at it, saw it was about next quarter's projections, and put it away without reading. It could wait until morning. Hell, it could wait until next week. Right now she had everything she needed right here. Hey, Daniel whispered across Leo's sleeping form. You okay? Yeah, I was just thinking. About? About how I almost missed this. How I almost chose the wrong thing. But you didn't. But I almost did. She reached across Leo to find Daniel's hand. Thank you for giving me another chance, for not giving up on me when I gave up on us. I didn't give up, I just made you choose. There's a difference. Best thing anyone ever did for me. They lay there in comfortable silence, their hands clasped across their sleeping child. Three people who'd chosen each other despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite all the logical reasons it shouldn't work. On Sophia's desk in her home office, carefully positioned where she could see it every day, sat Leo's shell. The safe one, with no sharp parts. The one he'd given her that first week, before she knew what it meant to be part of something bigger than herself. Next to it was the collage from the art show. Family is people who stay. And beside her computer, in a simple frame, was a photo from that day at the lighthouse. 3 figures on the observation deck, tall, medium, small, all of them looking out at something vast and beautiful, standing together against the wind. Sophia Reed had spent 15 years building an empire, achieving success, proving her worth through accomplishments and acquisitions. But it turned out the most important thing she'd ever built was this: a family. Imperfect, unconventional, and absolutely right. She'd learned that love wasn't about being first or controlling outcomes. It was about showing up, staying present, choosing people over and over again, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. The sandcastles they had built that first week were long gone, destroyed by tides and time. But every Sunday morning, weather permitting, they returned to the beach, built new castles, created new memories, reinforced the foundation of this life they'd chosen together. And when the tide inevitably came and washed away their creations, they'd return the next week and build again, because that's what family did. They showed up. They stayed. They built and rebuilt and kept building, finding joy in the impermanence, meaning in the process rather than the permanence of the product. Sophia finally understood what Daniel had known all along. She didn't need to be first, didn't need to be the center of everything. She just needed to be present, to be chosen, to choose in return. And in that quiet coastal house, with a child sleeping peacefully between her and the man she loved, Sophia Reed finally understood what it meant to be home. Not a place, not an achievement, not something she'd built through strategic planning and relentless execution. Just 3 people who'd found each other and decided to stay. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.